everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In today's video, we are previewing a very special matchup. It's the 49ers traveling to Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Repeat of last year's NFC Championship game. This is going to be a good one. There is a lot to talk about in this preview video, so let's not waste any time and let's jump right in. In this massive NFC showdown, Week 13, we have the 8-3 San Francisco 49ers taking on the 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Last week, the 49ers got a very big win in Seattle on Thanksgiving to set us up nicely for this game. We have the extra 3 days rest. The Philadelphia Eagles, they just continue winning through a gauntlet of games. They just beat the Buffalo Bills in overtime in a wild game. Some controversial calls, but at the end of the day, Philadelphia is able to pull it out, and now they will be hosting the San Francisco 49ers. When we look at what Vegas thinks of this game, they actually have the 49ers by 3, which, I'm obviously a big diehard Niner fan, but even I think that's a little much. At anything, I think it should be a push. Normally, the home team is given 3 points, but yikes, I can't believe the Niners are favored by 3 in this game. The over-under for the game is about 47 points. So this is going to be a game where I think, both teams, you have good offenses, but you also have good defenses on both sides of the ball. Looking into this matchup, we do have some injuries of note. Eric Armstead has not been practicing for the 49ers. However, he himself has said there's no way he's missing this game, so he should be out there. Of course, we're down Hufanga and George Odom. George Odom could potentially be a big loss on special teams moving forward in the season. But overall, I think the Niners are relatively healthy heading into this matchup. The Eagles, on the other hand, they have a lot of players who are limited in practice, not practicing. Fletcher Cox is a big name, one of the longtime veteran guys with the Eagles who's just been so good in his career. Hasn't been practicing as of Thursday. He's questionable for the game. Then you have tight end Dallas Goedert. He's been out the last few weeks with an injury. He's practicing. Does he play on Sunday? That remains to be seen. Maybe see if he can go be a game time decision, something like that. Overall, though, both teams are relatively healthy, although right now, looking at the injury reports, the Eagles are definitely a little bit more banged up, and because they've been going through teams like the Bills and the Chiefs and the Cowboys, so big time matchups for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it won't get any easier this week when they host the 49ers. Now, when we look at the stats heading into this matchup, and let's take a close look at the Philadelphia Eagles, something that really impressed me was their run defense. They are third in the NFL against the run, and of course, that's something that the Niners will want to do, which we'll talk about later. Their passing defense, however, not that great. Kind of surprised how poor it is when you look at statistically, at least. They have some great edge rushers, they have some really good DBs. So curious to see what's happening there, and I think some of it's maybe just the schedule that they've been playing, just really good teams. But I also think that they've maybe lost their edge a little bit compared to last year. Losing both of their coordinators definitely doesn't help, but I just don't think this defense is playing with the same swag, with the same confidence that we saw last year. A guy like CJ Gardner-Johnson, who got them a ton of interceptions, no longer with the Eagles. He's over in Detroit and he's injured currently, but the Eagles, against the run, they are really solid, and that's no surprise when you have guys like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox up in the middle, clogging those holes, allowing the linebackers to make plays. Something that really surprised me too when I looked at the Philadelphia Eagles is their turnover ratio. On the season, they're -2 in turnovers. You compare that to the 49ers, we are +11. So that's going to be something that we have to take advantage of in this matchup. Jalen Hurts, he's averaging about an interception per game. We'd like to keep that on track. Maybe we can force a fumble, whether it's, at a running game, wide receiver, maybe even on special teams. Wishnowski been doing a great job, makes those punts a little bit more tricky to catch. Can we make a big special teams play like we saw against the Seattle Seahawks? So that's something to keep an eye on in this matchup, and that's so big when you're the road team in a very hostile environment, is can you make those big game-changing plays? That's going to be huge for the 49ers. Now, offensively, when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they're relatively balanced. They're a little bit better in their run game. The interesting thing is that both the 49ers Niners and the Eagles actually score the exact same amount of points per game. The Niners do rack up a little bit more yards, but the Eagles are able to get points on the board. You look at a lot of their offensive weapons and they are vast. We're going to talk about some of those players a little bit. And actually, coming up next, guys, I'm going to talk about some key Philadelphia Eagles players that I think we 49er fans need to keep an eye on heading into this matchup. Alrighty guys, we are going to go through 4 players for the Philadelphia Eagles that I will be keeping a special eye on in Sunday's matchup. And typically in these videos, and it's going to be the same here, is I don't necessarily go for the very obvious choices like the quarterback or what have you. So one guy I think that we need to keep an eye on is running back DeAndre Swift. He came over from Detroit to Philadelphia, and he is having his best year as an NFL player. He has 770 rushing yards so far. That's good for 4th in the NFL. 4.8 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. Tack on another 200 receiving yards and a touchdown there, and you're looking at almost 1,000 scrimmage yards on the season so far for DeAndre Swift, and that 4.8 yards per carry, that is good. Also helps when you have that really good offensive line to run behind, but he's someone who can kind of do it all. He has pace. He's able to just pick up chunk yards, something that the Niners are absolutely going to have to limit. When we talk about the Eagles' offensive line, another guy that we're going to talk about to focus on is going to be right tackle Lane Johnson. Now, he's been out the last game or 2, I believe, but he is on schedule, and he's definitely going to want to play in this game against the 49ers. Now, we all know what Lane Johnson is. Is he false starting? Is he not? I think he is. I mean, everyone who looks at it is just screaming like it's a false start. I have seen some things where former NFL players, former college players actually dispute this and say by the rule, it's not a false start. Other people will say that it is. So I'm just going to leave it up to the officials, but they seem to not call it any time, so maybe it is legal. However, it's a huge advantage. And not only that, is Lane Johnson, he's just a great player, the best right tackle in the NFL. So we're going to have ourselves work cut out for us with Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Randy Gregory, Cleveland Farrell, all these guys. Plus, seeing what we've done in recent weeks is having maybe Chase Young and Bosa on the inside doing different stunts, throwing different looks at offensive lines, try and trip them up a little bit and get after the quarterback is going to be huge. Now, when we move on to the defensive side of the ball for the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to start off with edge rusher Haason Reddick. We all know in last year's NFC Championship game, it was Haason Reddick who had the sack on Brock Purdy that led to him tearing his UCL and basically ended the NFC Championship game in the first quarter. Of course, we're not going to want that to happen again by any stretch of the imagination. You know, note to Kyle Shanahan, maybe don't have your second or third tight end blocking him, but I think Haason Reddick is a guy who really makes that defense go. He's someone who's been talking on social media. He's a vocal leader in that locker room, and he is their leading sack guy. 8.5 sacks on the year. They also have some really good edge rushers too, and Josh Sweat. They have still Brandon Graham who's doing his thing. They have really good defensive tackles that can get after the quarterback as well. But Haason Reddick, that speedy edge rusher, is someone who could maybe give some problems to a guy like Colton McKivitz. I have a lot of faith in Trent Williams to lock down the left side. The right side, however, that's going to be a big-time challenge. And just because the Eagles are so talented along their entire defensive line, Purdy's not necessarily going to be able to step up in the pocket all the time. And you have a speedy guy like Haason Reddick on the outside, that could lead to some problems for the 49ers offense. And the second player that we're going to talk about on the Eagles defense, it's going to be safety Reed Blankenship. Now, the reason why I'm pointing him out is that he could potentially be a weak spot in that secondary. You look at their secondary, they traded for Kevin Byard, who's really good. They have James Bradbury, they have Darius Slay. No real notable weaknesses there, except for a guy like Reed Blankenship, who's a guy who's a very solid safety, but is he great? I don't think so. Now that I say that, he'll probably have some big plays in the game. But when we talk about Reed Blankenship, not the most athletic guy, kind of relies on maybe football smarts a little bit more than athleticism, but someone who I think we can exploit. I think if you can get him into, maybe challenge him a little bit, put him into some vertical stretches, horizontal stretches, where you force him to have to use his athleticism, that could be a big thing for the Niners. I think we'll take some deep shots down the field. Don't be afraid to be surprised if you see shots to Ayuk and Debo, even George Kittle as well. I think the Eagles have solid linebackers, but not anywhere near the level of the 49ers linebackers and Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. So we're going to be challenging all over the field, but I think he might be the guy that Shanahan really wants to go after and force him to make plays. Can he step up? Well, that will remain to be seen on Sunday. Now, coming up next, guys, I'm going to give you some keys to winning for the 49ers, and then after that, I will give you my prediction for the game. Let's now talk about some keys to winning this game for the 49ers. And to me, the biggest thing is we cannot hurt ourselves. And what I mean by that is we cannot have those unforced penalties, those false starts, illegal shift, illegal motion. Something along those lines is not using timeouts when we ideally wouldn't want to, is when the play clock is running low, because you never know, especially in the second half, how important those timeouts could be later in the game. So getting the play call in time, getting everything set up and ready to go. Some other big things are no negative plays. Looking at some of those plays where we pitch it out to Debo and we lose 3 yards, we do like a wide zone run with McCaffrey, lose 3 or 4 yards. Those are just absolute killers. And then when you get into those bad situations, and this also goes for the penalties, it allows the Eagles defensive line to just feast and attack. And that's what they want to do. The other big thing is in the turnover battle. Like we discussed earlier, Niners much better on the season, and that needs to continue on Sunday, but especially in the red zone. We've seen the 49ers in some key games, in some of our key losses, have really bad turnovers in the red zone. I think back to the Brock Purdy interception against the Bengals and McCaffrey fumbling against the Minnesota Vikings. Got to be able to at least come away with 3, but ideally come away with 7, especially when you're in the red zone. Now, the next thing, which is what we're going to need to do, and it's not going to be easy by any means, is we have to establish the run game. Whenever the Niners with Brock Purdy, whenever we have over 115 rushing yards, Purdy undefeated. Whenever we're below that, Purdy hasn't won a game. So we need to establish the run game, which will set up the play action. And then when you have an effective run game, it does slow down those edge rushers. So when you hit them with the play action, the edge rushers, they're maybe looking for the run, then they realize it's going to be a pass. So you eliminate what they can do to a large degree when you run the ball effectively. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. You got to give them a lot of different looks, but I think we just have to do what we do well, and that's run between the tackles. Get McCaffrey to find those little holes, to find those little gaps, and just hit them. We've seen the game against the Buffalo Bills. They were able to, with their offensive line, to establish a solid run game and to open those holes. If we can do the same thing, I think we can have a lot of success with McCaffrey. Don't be surprised to see some Elijah Mitchell as well. He's one of those guys, and I would like to see Jordan Mason. I know that he's RB number 3 according to Kyle Shanahan, but maybe Mason, cold weather where, dogfight, running the football, Jordan Mason, that would be awesome to see, maybe in some short yardage situations too. But I think we got to run the ball effectively if we're going to win this game. Big thing now, if we move on to the defensive side of the ball, is we have to maintain our gap assignments. One of the big things the 49ers defense we do is every player has an assignment for each of the gaps. So what we need to do is we have to be really disciplined. We have to read the play well. Everyone has to be communicating really, really well. Of course, so we can shut down their run game, but also so we don't allow Jalen Hurts to beat us with his legs. He's going to get some yards, but you ideally just don't want it to be a back-breaking play like a 3rd and 13 and he runs for 14 yards. If we stay disciplined, if we limit that, that can be a really big thing for the 49ers moving forward. Another thing defensively, which we've seen in recent weeks, is I want to see the DBs be physical with the wide receivers at the line of scrimmage within those 5 yards so you don't get those penalties. That means Mooney Ward, that means Diamador Lenore. I want to see them going up against Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, being physical, throwing off their timing a little bit, allow the rush to get there, and maybe you force Hurts into some mistakes. And finally, what we cannot do is we cannot allow them in a key situation to get into a 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. The damn tush push. That play, it doesn't seem legal. The way the offensive linemen, they just throw their helmets, it just doesn't seem right. But look, The NFL, it's not against the rules by any means, and the Eagles are amazing at doing it. Any team is allowed to do it, but they just are so good at it. Jason Kelce is just a fantastic center, but if we can limit that, if we just got to keep him into those 3rd and 3, especially on 4th down, we keep him just 2-3 yards. I know it's not an easy thing to do, but it's something the Niners will have to do if we want to come away with a win against who, in my latest power rankings, are my best team in the NFL on the road. Whew, this is going to be such a good matchup. I just cannot wait. And let me give you guys my prediction now. I have it 49ers 26, Eagles 23. So I do have the 49ers winning this game. I could see it going either way, but I'm going to go with my heart here. I'm going to say the 49ers win this game by 3. That really opens up things in the NFC. This game is more important, I think, for the 49ers than the Eagles. If the Eagles win this game, really their only competition for the number 1 seed would be the Dallas Cowboys, because everyone else I think is falling away a little bit. You look at the Lions, lost a couple of games, or almost lost a couple of games in a row. They lost to the Packers on Thanksgiving. If the Niners lose a 4th game this season, that could really sway things, and that could really allow Philadelphia to just run away with it. However, if we win, then we move to 9-3. The Eagles 10-2, then they play Dallas on the road and Seattle on the road. So not an easy set of games right there for the Eagles. So it's such a big thing. The Niners, we got to go in. We got to win this game. You know that all of these players, probably on both teams, circled this matchup once the schedule came out, because we know it's a repeat of the NFC Championship game. We know that game never really got underway. The game was over in the first quarter when Brock Purdy got hurt. So I can't wait to see what happens on Sunday. It's going to be electric. Of course, I will be here streaming the game live. I'll be going live at 1 p.m. Pacific time, so about 20-25 minutes before kickoff. It's going to be awesome. I hope you guys will join me. Leave your thoughts in the comments below about this matchup. What are some key matchups, some key players, some key things that you guys want to see the 49ers do? If you enjoy the content, do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share the video all over social media. And before I head out, I'm going to say 2 things. The butt counts, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.